Hi everyone, I'm super duper excited to bring you this sales training. We are going to go over making sales in one-on-one service-based businesses and the easiest ways to do that. For those of you who don't know me, I have been in online marketing and sales for a decade. This is something that I do quite naturally, and I'm going to give you a little bit about my background so you understand where I'm coming from with my technique for sales, because it's a little bit different than what you may have been taught in the past. So first of all, I come from a sales background. I have been in sales since I was a very small child. I used to attend sales meetings with my dad. In one of my favorite memories, we actually got to Boeing headquarters. My dad was selling the president of Boeing on his design for a bearing. Didn't like what the guy had to say, gave him the finger and walked out. He got the contract. I started my very first job at the sales desk of a local gym, and then I went to sell cars. I sold cell phones. I have sold all kinds of things. I've also been on the other side with de-escalation for customers and customer service. So the best way for service-based businesses to make sales is this. You need to be more interested in the person and their business than you are in the sale. I'm going to say that again. You need to be more interested in the person that you're talking to and their business than you are in making the sale. Because here's the thing, if you hop onto a sales call and all you can think about is whether or not they're going to say yes, you've already lost the sale, because they're going to feel that from you. You're going to seem distracted and they're not going to open up as much as they would if you led the sales call in a service-based way. The first thing you can do to increase your sales as a service-based business is this. Start the call with small talk. I don't care if you're on the phone, if you're on Zoom, if you're in a messenger chat selling, start the conversation with small talk. Ask them what the weather's like. Ask them if they have kids. Ask them if they have pets. If you know they have pets, ask what they're like. Do something to initiate a conversation that's a human being conversation. Because here's the thing, guys, you wouldn't expect to go to the hair salon and have the stylist immediately dive into the technicalities of what they're doing. They create small talk with you, right? You have a banter back and forth prior to them putting color or trimming. Yes, you're going to talk about the style and the color and all of that stuff. But you have a conversation first. They're in a service-based business. And here's the thing, whether you realize it or not, so are you. Okay, so once you get them talking, I want you to ask them what prompted them to hop on this call with you. I don't care what you call your sales calls. They can be discovery calls, they can be visionary calls, they can be VIP calls, they can be momentum calls, whatever. Whatever you call them, ask them why they chose to talk with you today, because it's very telling when you read what they write and then they will add other pieces as they tell you. I ask people to fill out a form. If you've hopped on a call with me, you know this. If you get an email saying, please fill out this form prior to our conversation, and about, I would say 60% of people do. If they do, that's great, but I'm still going to ask them, please tell me about what's going on. And I'm going to sit and take notes with a pen and paper or with my tablet and my pen, because I want to make sure that I can parrot their language back to them. So for example, if someone comes to me and they're like, well, I wrote a sales page and it took me 2 weeks and I've completely stopped my launch because I can't even fathom writing sales emails right now. Parrot that back and say, wow. So if I'm hearing you correctly, please correct me if I'm wrong, but you're struggling with the copywriting piece of your launch. Is that correct? And give them space. Okay, you mentioned it took you 2 weeks to write your sales page. Tell me more about that. Give them space to tell you what their real deep dive problem is. Once they tell you what their problem is, it's super tempting to jump on it immediately and sell them instantly. Now, sales calls don't have to be long. You can totally hold a sales call in 15 to 20 minutes, but you need to be cognizant that you're in service. So once they tell you what the problem is, instead of immediately doing what everybody else does and what they are expecting, ask them what the transformation they would like to see is. So you're telling me you don't want to write sales copy anymore. In an ideal world, what would this period look like for you, or what would you like to see happen? Now you've allowed them to dream and imagine, and they're going to give you the words that you're going to turn around and pair it back to them to sell your products or services. It's also going to give you the space. This is why I tell people to not put their prices on their website, to determine a package that is very, very specific to the consumer. So here's the thing. We are in a economic situation where people are having to make very hard choices in their business. A lot of people are having to make very hard choices in their business, and they're having to choose between hiring on a specialist or a contractor or paying themselves, or they're having to piecemeal out work where normally they would have hired a package, or they would have hired a larger firm. There are all kinds of decisions people are making, so we need to make it really easy for them to understand the value of us. So once they've told you what it would feel like to have the problem solved, you can take those words and say, okay, so this is what I heard you say you needed. And you tell them the pieces that they needed. And then if there's anything in that list they gave you, or that description that they gave you that doesn't fit what you do, that's okay. You just let them know that you can either refer someone. This is why I love having a good, solid referral network. You can direct them to another location. Does that make sense? You have the control of the call. Now, the thing is, we want to make sure the person is comfortable. So before we pitch, before we offer services, before we dive in even, if you feel like you need to, especially at the beginning, you can totally ask permission. Is it okay if I tell you, is it okay if I ask some questions? If you haven't done that, that's totally cool. You don't need to, but you definitely need to ask before you pitch. So once they told you what their pain is and what the desired pleasure is in the sales process, you are going to say, okay, so I heard that you need someone who can handle your copy. You need someone to create the strategy. You'd like someone who can also lead your team, and you need a graphic designer. Is that correct? And they say yes. You say, great. So I can take care of 3 of those 4 things, and I might even have a solution for that 4th piece. Would you like to hear what my solution is? Or can I share how I can help? You're asking for space. You're asking them permission to pitch them. And I guarantee you this one change, just this one change, is going to shift the conversation in a way you cannot imagine, because it's going to catch them off guard. Because how many times have you been on a sales call with someone, myself, anyone else, and they just straight up like, here's how much it costs. And it's kind of jarring, right? So if they say yes to being sold, then say, great. So I can solve this problem for you. Here's the things I can do, and this is the cost. And then shut up. I know my mother always said not to use that phrase. There's really not a nicer way to say this, guys. You have got to say what it costs and then be quiet. And I mean like the quiet game quiet, okay? If you're one of those anxious people who cannot sit still, who wants to interject, who wants to justify, you're shooting yourself in the foot. And here's why. When you start to self-justify the price, it immediately removes your expert status and makes you sound like you're desperate. We don't want that. So once you say how much it costs, shut up, for the love. If you have to have, I actually will take my little garnet here and I'll roll it in my hands, like below the desk, like this. Like you can't really see a lot of movement. I'm just sitting here, but I'm actually physically rolling my stone to keep myself still. If you're able to just sit still for 60 seconds, do it. Most people, not you, them, the person that you're speaking to, will say something within 60 seconds. If they don't, you can prompt, but give yourself a full minute of silence, because what happens when you switch from, here's my problem, here's how you can fix it, oh, money, the brain has to switch out of creative mode into numbers mode, which is a totally different part of your brain. You need to give them time to make that transition. You also need to give them time to consider their budget, their bank account, if they can afford you, if they're at a good place. Do you see where I'm going with this? You need to give them space. Okay. Now, if they say no, that's totally cool. Get permission to follow up. Say, I totally understand. I always aim to be in service to everyone I speak to. So here are a few things that you can implement right now based on the struggles you told me that you're having. And I'd love to follow up with you. Would it be okay if I followed up with you in a few weeks to see how that's working for you? The thing is, guys, I have made sales months and years after an initial conversation because I mastered follow-up. If you need follow-up help, you can go to the market research course and watch the follow-up bonus section. It's really, really great. It gives timing and everything else. So give them some actionable tips because now you've been helpful. Connect them with anyone you said you were going to connect them with, and then follow up. If they are a no for you, you're like, you've listened, you're getting this like cringy, like you're wanting your neck to become like 17 chins and you're kind of like pulling back, and like even though you look great, you're like internally going, oh no. Okay. That's a good indicator they're not going to be a great client for you because they're going to be a lot of work and a lot of stress. So what you can do is say, great. So, based on what you told me, I could help you out with this, but I think that it would actually be in your business's best interest for you to do this instead, and give them an alternative or recommend them to somebody else. Because here's the thing about referrals and recommendations. Just because they ping your crazy radar doesn't mean they're going to ping somebody else's. This is the same advice. Don't assume people's pocketbooks. Don't assume money, okay? So we have the three options for pitching in the call. Once you've mastered their pain and their pleasure because you've listened and you've had an actual conversation and you've shifted into what you can provide for them, they're a hard no and you give them some actionable tips and you're done, or recommend them to somebody else. You give them the price and you shut up. You give them one price. Don't give them 18 million options. Tell them ballpark. You could even say, without further investigating the situation, this is the ballpark price. If you want to send over samples, if you need that kind of stuff, give them what your price is. My prices start at $2,500 a month or something like that. And number 4 is they say no and they are like a dream client for you. Get permission to follow up. Give them some actionable tips that they or their team can implement immediately, and then begin the follow-up steps. The last piece, once you've given them your price, if they've said yes, if you've given them their price and you were quiet and you let them think and they come back with, I can't afford it, which is a lot of what we're hearing right now. This is the perfect time to offer payment plans or full pay options or revenue share options. It is up to you and your business what you want to use for your billing. The 3 most common ways to bill are monthly or weekly payment plans. A payment plan, standard payment plan. We've all used it, seen it, done it, right? Paid in full, meaning they would get a discount off of what the total of the monthly payments would have been for your services. So let's say you have a 3-month offer. It's a 90-day program, $7,500 if you pay $2,500 a month. If they pay in full right now before they start, it would be $5,000. So they would save themselves $2,500. I'm using this for easy numbers, guys. The other option is a revenue share with a deposit. So if you are in a business that makes them money, where they can monetize, they have a decent sized list, you've calculated the risk. Don't do this just because I tell you to do this, by the way. This is something that you need to look into for yourself and see if it fits your business. I did not do revenue share for so many years because there was just never an opportunity where I felt comfortable. I have shifted to doing it more in the past 2 years, and it's been really lucrative for me, but it's a lot of risk because there's no guarantee you're ever going to collect the rest of the money. So think of that what you will, but you can offer some kind of a deposit plus revenue share. So for example, I had a gal I pitched this past week right before I made this call, and my $2,500 for her sales funnel made her literally choke on her words. And she looked so dejected. And I know she has a list of 30,000 people that are very active. The last time she sold her program, she easily made, multiple 6 figures. I don't think it's going to be a problem. So therefore I offered her an option to do a 1/3 down with the remainder paid in revenue share. And we capped it to make her comfortable because of the time. So normally I wouldn't cap it. I'd say it was for like 90 days and then I could, pay off my car or something. So there are options with payment. If people balk at the payment, even if they balk at the payment, you could just say, I totally understand. I don't negotiate my pricing. I'm happy to work with you on a payment plan that works for you or whatever. But I learned a long time ago that when I start discounting my services, it becomes a very strained relationship. So this is my pricing. So we'll figure it out, or, could I follow up with you, and move into follow up. Okay. At its core, the sales process that's going to get you a lot more sales in your service-based business is this. One, start the conversation with an actual conversation. Treat humans like humans. Shocking but true. Number two, dig into their pain. Ask them why they hopped on the call with you. Ask them why they looked you up. Get them talking about why they came to find you, and then ask them to tell you more. Magic words there. Tell me more about that. Once you get the information that you need because you've been taking notes, you can use that and you can pair it back. So what I hear you saying is, and repeat those pain points back to them and get their confirmation that you heard them correctly. Then ask them what it would look like if their problem was no longer a problem and if it was completely solved. You're going to repeat back those pleasure words to them. So if I'm hearing you correctly, you would like to have XYZ things happen. Now, a lot of times, especially in service-based industries, it's all circulating around their monetary basis, right? We all know we cannot guarantee someone else's income, so be very, very careful of doing that. It's an easy trap to get sucked into. I always have the caveat, listen, I can't promise anything, but based on what you told me, you'd like to have a $200,000 launch, you'd like to add 1,000 people to your list, whatever. I think this is possible, but I can't guarantee anything, obviously. You know, this all depends on the partnership, what you're willing to do to promote and some other things, right? And then get permission to share your solution. Once they give the permission, then you can make the choice about how to close it, whether you say, peace out, see you later, and never talk to them again, and give them a referral or some tips. If you pitch them and they can't afford the price, ask to follow up. And if you pitch them and they're a yes, then get that contract going. All right, guys, I hope that was helpful. I am so thankful that you watched this all the way through, and I will see you later. Bye.